In this video, we are looking at practice 29. We are in book 2 of the Math Tabe Tutor Practice series. Practice 29 is about inequalities, and that starts on page 12. If you have not watched the instructional video on inequalities, or if your teacher hasn't already shown you how to do these, please watch that first, because that's where the instruction, the lesson part of this is. This is a practice exercise. So I'm assuming that you already know what inequalities are and how to graph them. Number 1. Fran adds milk to the grocery list when there are fewer than 2 gallons of milk in the refrigerator. Which inequality represents this situation? Well, the key phrase here is fewer than 2 gallons, or let's say fewer than 2. Gallons is really not that important. So I'm going to sketch a graph of that concept. I like graphs. Graphs help me very much. So if you say, here is the 2, and I think I need to adjust the pen size so that it's not so large. Let's try that again. Here we go. So we're going to put a 2 on there. And remember, we put our circle. We ask ourselves, is the 2 included? And the 2 is not included. We are only interested when the milk gets below 2 gallons. So we are saying that x is less than 2, or the milk gallons drop below 2. And they're just using x for the gallons. I would have used g or m, but it doesn't matter what you use for the variable. The answer does not change based on the letter itself. So x is less than 2. Number 2. Doug must periodically add salt to the water softener. The inequality on the number line represents the number of gallons of water for which salt should be added. Which value indicates that Doug should add salt? So it's a little hard to see on mine, but I'm sure in your book it's not. If you look at the 90, you have a closed circle at the 90. So here is where we have to focus to answer this question. And because it's closed, it includes 90. Okay. And if you can see barely, this blue line is below that mark. So the interval is in this area. So we're saying that at 90 or less, he needs to add salt. So which of these would fit in that interval? The interval is at 90 or below, so it can be 90 itself or less than that. So when the gallons reach this point, we add salt. Only one of our choices is in that interval. Only one of our choices is less than or equal to 90. So it could be D, but the others are greater than 90. And that is not consistent with our graph. Number 3. Carrie fills a coffee pot with at least 7 cups of water. Which inequality represents the situation? So at least 7. At least 7. So remember what we talked about in the lesson. What does at least mean? At least means greater than or equal to 7. So I am looking for, be careful here. Be very, very careful. We're saying cups are greater than equal to 7. So my eye goes to D. I'm looking at the arrow. But D is not the correct answer because the number's on the left side. We have to make sure that this is saying what it's supposed to. The C is the bigger value. So this is the answer. The 7 is on the small end of that arrow. So we need to keep it that way in our answer. What they're saying, they didn't write it in standard form. They wrote it this way. But those mean exactly the same thing. Number 4. Joel can build up to 3 bookshelves in a week. This can be represented by the inequality 3 is greater than or equal to x. So which two statements are true? Now if we graph this one, I think it'll be a little easier to see. So let me put a graph down here. And I can't draw a straight line today for the world. So here's 3. And here's the interval. He can build up to 3. So that means that the interval I'm looking at is this way, including the 3. So could he build 2 bookshelves in a week? He sure could, because 2 would be in the shaded interval. Could he build 3? He could. But he could not build 4 or 5 because both of those answers are above the interval. So the ones we want, there are 2 of them this time, are A and B. Have to read very carefully, and I really like the graph. If I can see the graph, I can usually answer the questions I need to do. All right, number 5. When placing a catering order, the recommended tray size depends on the number of people to be served. A small tray is represented by people are up to 5, less than or equal to 5. A medium tray is represented by people are less than 15. And a large tray is represented by people are 15 or more. Which of the following indicates the recommended tray size for a group of 5 people? Well, we wouldn't want a large tray, but that is one of the options. So I don't need a large. That would be 15 or more. Small covers 5 people or fewer, and medium covers fewer than 15. So either of these would be appropriate for 5 people. If the people were children, I would probably go with the smaller tray. If I have 5 adults, I probably would go with the medium. But either tray is within the catering guidelines for 5 people. So number 5 is D. Number 6. In the inequality x is greater than or equal to 5, how many values can x represent? So again, I want to see a graph of this one. Just sketch yourself a picture. Put your 5 on there in your circle. And x can be anything above 5 or 5 itself. Above 5 or 5 itself. So you want to make sure that you include the 5. So let's see what our choices are. All values greater than or equal to 5. That would be all values 5 or more. Yes, A is one of my choices. all values less than or equal to 5? No, that is not one of my choices. Exactly 6 values. So this is saying that we can go up here to 10 and stop, but there's nothing that says I have to stop at 10. Same thing here, exactly 5 values. That one is not right because it doesn't include the 5 itself. So the answer I'm looking for is A. It's anything that is equal to 5 or greater than 5. Number 7. A chapter of Nicole's book is 38 pages long. Her goal is to read at least 18 pages a day. So that's 18 or more pages by the end of the day. Which inequality represents this situation? Well, we can eliminate these two because they don't talk about the 18. She wants to read at least 18 pages. So that is this one. Her pages, her reading needs to be 18 or higher. Number 8. Rusty must score greater than 150 points to pass a test. So 150 is not enough. It has to be more than 150. Which inequality represents this situation? It's B. His score must be greater than 150. Matt's insurance policy has a deductible. Claims paid out by the insurance company are represented by the number line. Which claim is paid by the insurance company? So the insurance company will pay if it is greater than $500. Does not include $500. It has to be more than 500. So we are talking about D. Has to be bigger than 500, and this one would be, it would sit right in there. Number 10. Sue stops at a deli on her way home. Sue orders less than 3 pounds of roast beef. Which inequality represents this situation? Less than 3. That is option A. Part B. Sue also orders turkey. The inequality x is less than or equal to 2 represents the order in pounds. Which phrase describes Sue's turkey order? It's less than 2 pounds. It's greater than 2 pounds. It's less than or equal to 2 pounds. Number 11. Josh buys a shed. The assembly manual indicates that it will take more than 4 hours to assemble the shed. Which two inequalities represent the situation? So let me graph it for you. Is 4 hours enough? No. It is more than 4. So it's up into this part of the line. So we would say that x is more than 4, or that 4 is less than x. Either of those would be appropriate. And I am liking guys. These arrows get me a little tripped up. And F. You have to make sure that those arrows are going in the right directions. The 4 is on the small end of the arrow, and it has to be there regardless of whether the arrow is pointing left or right. The 4 is on the smaller end of it. A, D, and E are out because the circle on my graph is not colored in. It's not a closed interval. It is an open interval. All right, number 12. Many airlines charge a fee for overweight luggage. The number line represents the weight in pounds for overweight luggage. Which two weights would be charged an overweight fee? So we have a closed interval at 51 and higher. So if the luggage weight is greater than or equal to 51, I will get charged a fee. So I would get charged at 51 and at 54. Both of those are in the interval. Number 13. Larry stocks a pond with bass. The inequality 55 is less than or equal to B represents the number of bass Larry stocks in the pond. Which statement is true? Okay, to show you this one, first thing I'm going to do is standardize this form. So B is on the big side of the arrow. B is 55 or more. And then I'm going to graph. Can we include 55? We can. So let's color in the circle. And then anything above 55 would be the number of bass in the pond. So the bass number are greater or equal to 55. Larry stocks the pond with at least 55. Larry stocks the pond with less than 55. Larry stocks the pond with no more than 55. Larry stocks the pond with a maximum of 55. So the answer we want is A. I strongly recommend standardizing these and then graphing them. But that's tricky. It sort of messes with your mind a little bit. Greg rents a hotel room. The cost is $109 per night plus taxes and room charges. Which two inequalities represent the situation? So the cost is 109 plus, I'm just going to say fees. So we know that the cost will be at least $109. Now, if there was no tax or fees, you could leave it right. You could say greater than or equal to 109. But we know that it's going to be more than 109 because we know there will be taxes and fees. So what I'm looking for, they're using X here. It's going to be at least $109. And since we know that taxes and fees are added, it cannot be 109. So we want our X to be on the big part of the arrow. And that is happening at C. It's also happening at E. Remember, you can reverse these. But if you write them in the different order, you have to reverse the sign also. So either of those could be the answer. These are tricky. When they ask for two of them that say the same thing, that's tricky. Number 15. JR plays lacrosse. The number of goals he scores is represented by the inequality x is greater than 2. How many goals could JR have scored? Well, more than 2. If you want to graph that one, it would look like this. 2 is not included, so it would be anything above the 2. More than 2. Jessica shops for a new dress that costs less than $50. Which inequality represents this situation? So put your 50 down there. She doesn't have $50 or didn't pay $50. It has to be less than 50. So the dress is less than 50. And that goes with option A. Okay, that brings us to the end of practice 29. I will see you in the next practice, practice 30, where we will solve equations and inequalities. I hope you have a very good day, and I'll see you soon.